Hello children, we will be doing Unit 4.4, The Height of Ridiculous, which is a poem written by Oliver Wendell Holmes. So children, this poem describes how the poet's own fictional experience of writing a poem that was so funny it made his servant fall sick for 10 long days after reading it. So let's read the poem first. The Height of the Ridiculous. I wrote some lines once upon a time, in wondrous merry mood, and thought as usual men would say they were exceeding good. They were so queer, so very queer, I laughed as I would die. Albeit, in the general way, a sober man am I. I called my servant, and he came. How kind it was of him to mind a slender man like me. He of the might limb. These to the printer I exclaimed, and in my humorous way I added, as a trifling jest, there'll be the devil to pay. He took the paper, and I watched and saw him peep within. At the first line he read, his face was all upon the grin. He read the next, and grew broad, and shot from year to year. He read the third, a chuckling noise I now began to hear. The fourth, he broke into a roar. The fifth, his waistband split. The sixth, he burst 5 buttons off and tumbled in a fit. 10 days and nights, with sleepless eye, I watched that wretched man, and since I never dare to write as funny as I can. In this poem, there are some hard words. The first one is wondrous. Wondrous means delightful. Then we have queer. Queer means strange and funny, repetitive lines. Then we have albeit. Albeit means though. Then we have sober. Sober means clear-headed. Then we have limb. Limb means an arm or a leg. Just above that we have slender. Slender means thin. Then we have trifling. Trifling means unimportant or a simple joke which has no importance. Then we have grin. Grin means smile broadly. Chuckling means laugh quietly. Then we also have jest. Jest means things that are said for amusement. So children, this written some funny lines, of his poem. So when he was in a very, good mood, merry mood means what? In a very cheerful mood, he wrote some funny lines in his poem. So according to him, the lines which he had written were very, very good, and they were very queer. They were very queer, that means very strange. And that after reading those lines, he laughed so much that he felt like he would die after reading it. His stomach started paining after he started reading those lines. Then afterwards, later on, he called his servant who used to work for him, and that servant was a very huge man, a built-up man, whereas the poet was very thin. He was very sober and, slender. So this servant who was there, he was called, who was very, tall and very huge. So the poet asked him to take that paper in. So the servant, while he was taking those lines and moving ahead near the printer, he was very curious. He wanted to see what was written in them, that the poet started laughing. So he was very curious and anxious to know what was written in that. So he started peeping into those lines, and then he started reading them. So as he started reading them, this triggered a chain of reaction. That means As he started reading, he started, first he grinned, means a small slight smile he gave, because those lines were really very very funny. Then as he moved on reading further, he made a chuckling sound, a slight sound when we start to laugh. Then later on he broke into a roar, laughed very loudly. And on reading the fifth line, he started laughing and he felt those lines so funny that his waistband, split, that his waistband from his pant or the belt split. And then as he read the sixth line, there were 5 buttons that burst off his shirt. So much he felt the poem as humorous. He tumbled in a fit and fell down. So that means he felt, or he thought that those lines were so funny that he laughed so much that his waistband split, and then the 5 buttons of his shirt came off, and he just lied on the floor and started laughing and tumbling. The poet had to take, now this thing which happened was very bad on the poet, because after reading that poem, the servant was so ill. The poet had to take care of his servant for 10 days and nights without sleeping. He made up his mind never to write funny lines again. So it was a very hectic time for him to take care of his servant for 10 days and nights, because he felt ill. So from then on he promised to himself that he will never ever write any more funny lines. So children, with this we complete with the explanation for this poem. Thank you for listening. Take care.